Mark and Crystal, thanks so much for being on the Mind Flipping podcast.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having us, Rick. We're so happy to be here.
Thank you. As I told the listeners in the intro, Adam Markell, another Mind Flipping podcast guest, and recently I was a guest on his podcast, introduced us, and I was super excited to chat with both of you guys. You are my kind of people, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have a wonderful background, as our listeners heard in the intro. You've been doing this for a while in a lot of different ways, impacting lives around the world. So thank you for your work that you've done, and thanks for your time today. So if you're, I guess, you know, I asked this question in different ways. You know, I'm familiar with the work. I love the impact you're creating, but I'm sure I think you said you're down in Scottsdale, Arizona, right?
Yes, that's where our main home is. Yeah, usually we're not here this time of year, but you know, there's not a lot of travel going on. We've been out of town a little bit, but.
Well, my wife and I did my first ever road trip, RV road trip, and we kind of went down to Sedona. We were not too far from you guys a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. We steal away to Flagstaff on the weekends because the temperature drops about 25 degrees in 2 hours. So it's really nice. We just got back from a weekend there. So
it was beautiful. We stopped at the Toasted Owl for breakfast in Flagstaff.
Oh yeah.
Great fun.
Great place. Yes.
Yeah. It's really awesome. So what I was getting to is if you're in Scottsdale or Sedona or Flagstaff and you get chatting with people and they say, "Oh, so what do you guys do?" How do you answer that?
We say we're humbly say we're best-selling authors, which is true. I've sold 500 million books, 309 bestsellers, and she has been exceedingly busy and successful in doing the same. So we're wonderful, and we're the best possible thing is that she was on my bucket list, and I wanted a soulmate, but I got something better. I got a twin flame. So
that's awesome. That's so cool. In fact, I want to come back to that bucket list. That was one of the questions I got. And one of the things that we want to talk about is a book that you guys did together, Ask. Actually, I don't remember if there is a subtitle. Tell us a little bit about Ask and how that came about.
So it's called Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. Yes. And we're just so excited about this book, Rick. Mark and I spend an hour every day, the first part of the day, like in a prayer meditation time. And so we just discuss a lot of things. And we're so blessed to meet so many amazing people all around the world because we normally are traveling a lot. And so we started noticing that we would meet these people who were incredibly smart, talented, just over-endowed with so many gifts, but not necessarily achieving to their level of natural ability. So we started questioning each other and ourselves, like, what is the difference between those people who do reach success and those who don't? Because it's obviously not the qualities of the person necessarily. You know, these people are just amazing. They could be running a city or running a company or doing whatever. And what if we kind of said, what would be that one thing it would come down to? We said, it's the ability to ask, you know, to ask for what you want in life. And we broke it down in 3 areas. And those are ask yourself, ask others, and ask God. And each of those channels through which to ask, we feel are equally important.
I love it. And they are also important. And in each of those areas, there, you know, any one of the tips in your book in any one of those 3 areas could just like catapult somebody from where they are to where they want to be, internally, externally, in so many different ways. I love it. And so to your point, Mark, about she, you know, was a victory on your bucket list. I love that you share your bucket list. Very cool.
Well, you know, the point is the subtitle of the book is From Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. And I think every one of us has a destiny, and it's great. And what happens is most of us have never really explored the depth of ourselves. In other words, you go to high school, you finish, and you go into a trade, or you finish college or go on to college. And then you say, well, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Well, that's not the case anymore, because now we've had a lockdown for not just a few of us that are listening, but 8 billion of us. And 30 to 50% are not going to have a place to go back to. So they better explore who they are, what they want to do, where they want to go, and start asking themselves the deep, profound questions of, what am I really good at? Like Crystal said, what is it? Most of us have 4 times more talent, genius, ability, and skill than we're using. And we can't see it. So you need to ask 10 of your friends, write out what my skills are. Number 2 is, what would you love to do? And then number 3, in a brand new marketplace, We're all having to pivot and reinvent. What are you going to get paid substantially for? More than you've ever been paid before. Why should you think that what you made makes a difference when what you could make could be phenomenal?
That's a huge mind flip, a huge pivot. Yeah, that to that point. And I love one of the your book starts out with first a great fable about the bridge. I love it, and then the 7 roadblocks for asking. And one of those, how did you say it? It was the naivete. To your point, unaware of what's possible, and to your point, why be stuck where you were? Go beyond.
Right. And so that is one of the huge roadblocks. We put it second. The first one was unworthiness. The second one is naivete, because, a lot of us just aren't aware. And if we don't foster that curiosity within us and start asking questions, life can really pass us by, needlessly so, and I tell in the book, I tell the story of Imelda, the woman who worked for us when my children were very young, and she was from the Philippines, and she'd come over and make all these wonderful dishes from her homeland every day. And then one day she showed up with this fruit and cut it up for me and said, "Crystal, try this." And it was a shiny, orange, juicy fruit. And I was like, "Wow, what is this?" And she goes, "It's a mango." And I was like, "A mango? How come I've never tried a mango before?" I thought, at the time I felt pretty worldly. I did all over Europe and traveled a lot, Mexico. And I just, for some reason, had never tried a mango. And I go, "Well, where did you get these?" Thinking she brought them in, shipped them in. And she goes, "At the grocery store." And so I thought, oh my gosh, all this time I've been passing these wonderful fruits by and not even knowing they're there. But, it begs the question, like, how many other things am I passing by every day? How many wonderful things, juicy, delicious parts of life are we missing because we're not even aware? We're just naive that they're even there for us. How many people are we passing by? How many opportunities or experiences that might lead us to this next clue, to this next step? So that's part of our asking journey, is to rekindle that curiosity that we all had when we were kids, but that gets shut down.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mark, you brought up, the fact that as we're chatting now, whether we're in the middle, hopefully on the tail end of some stay-at-home stuff, or at least, the COVID, and it's caused a lot of us to have some introspection. So you guys are going to be somewhat of a milestone, episode 120, a nice round number, which is exciting.
Congratulations! That's
Thank
wonderful.
you. Yeah, and back in episode 110, it was one of the few where it was just me, and I shared my perspective of this time, that the most difficult times in my life is where I did turn in and we look at ourselves. So now's the great time to, as you talk about that first step, ask yourself. So tell us a little bit about that. When perhaps some of our listeners have the time now, how do they go about that, getting curious and asking themselves questions?
So back in 1974, I thought I was on top of the world. I'd been in graduate school with Bucky Fuller. He invented geodesic dome spherical buildings made out of triangles. And I built the Wall Street Record Club, botanical gardens, aviaries, houses out of plastic, PVC. Bad timing, because we had an oil embargo. And Arab said, "We can write checks so big your bank's amounts." Well, I went bankrupt so fast I had to check a book at the library, How to Go Bankrupt by Yourself. And what I look backwards and say, that was my best, worst experience, because what it did, for 6 months, I slept out in front of another guy's room, and I started to ask myself, what is it I want to do? And I said, I want to talk to people that care about things that matter, that would make a life-changing difference. I'm living in Hicksville, Long Island, New York. I left for Waukegan, Illinois long before that. And I'm asking my 3 roommates, hey guys, anybody you know that's speaking, that's not a lawyer, not a doctor, not a celebrity, not a famous person, not old? And he said, yeah, guy's a couple of years older than you. I'm in real estate. Here's my ticket. Go to the meeting in Hauppauge, Long Island, New York. I jump in that beat up Volkswagen, bankruptcy courts are not taken, race out there. This guy mesmerized, wowed the audience for 3 hours. At the end of which I asked him, I walked up and I said, remember, ask yourself. I knew what I wanted to do. And I said, Chip Collins, he became my best friend and mentor at the time. I said, tell me how you do this, because you're doing this. I want to do what you're doing. He said, chance you make it 1 in 1,000. You're not going to make it, but I'll tell you what to do. If you stay out of real estate, I own the 5 boroughs here and I don't want to go anywhere. I love living in Dix Hills, and he's rich already. So he said, you do life insurance. I'll tell you exactly what to say, how to do it. Anyhow, in the first 3 years, I was doing 1,000 talks a year. Now, as far as I know, only Tony and Robbins and I ever did that many talks a year.
Crazy.
I'd be talking at 6 in the morning if that's when I wanted, at 10, 2 in the afternoon, 8 at night, and selling in between because I had nothing else to do, and I was loving it. All of a sudden they said, do you have that story in a book? And I said, oh, I got to do a book. And the first book I did was Stand Up, Speak Out, Win. And I tripled my income. I started selling a book for $10. I said, this is my bestseller. I didn't say it's an international bestseller, a New York Times bestseller. It's just mine. And they all wanted my autograph. And I thought, wow, I just took in $200,000. This is like heaven. In 1974, man, that's like 2 or 3 million now.
That's awesome.
I died and loved it. And I was asking my way forward, and I asked for the business. And everybody listening's got to learn to pivot now and learn how to be what we're calling a master asker. And we're saying, hey, look, get a copy of the book. And the only place to get it for most of us is Amazon. And then we want to have you free, come to join our little group free, askthebookclub.com free. And once a month, Crystal and I are going to meet with you and help you master the fine art of asking and find your personal magnificent destiny that you ought to be magnificently obsessed with.
Excellent. So, because that was a loaded question, how do you ask? Well, you're saying go to askthebookclub.com.
Yes.
Right. Well, that's a book club we're having. So once you buy the book, we're going to have this amazing book club because we want everybody to really continue the asking journey. There's no charge for it. Just, it's going to be, a private meeting, and we'll send you a link. So yeah, if you go to Ask the Book Club, once you buy the book, go to askthebookclub.com and you can get an invitation to the book club.
So 2 steps: buy the book, Amazon.com or somewhere else, and then go to askthebookclub.com where, wow, you've got the guidance along the way of how to ask, how to be a master asker. I love that.
Right. Yeah. And just discussing the book and how it applies to your life. And we want to just keep this discussion going because we think it's really important right now for people to really learn this and to keep going with the journey. That's the thing. You just have to keep going because every time you ask a question, you get an illumination. You ask another question, a solution comes to you. You ask another question, you start to form a plan. And it's in that way that you start to, take those dreams that are in your heart, maybe locked away, and start down that pathway or cross that bridge to your destiny. So it's such a magical thing when you really engage in the asking journey. I mean, we are getting such amazing feedback on this book, for which we're really thankful.
Can I just go one step further, if you don't mind, because it's mind flipping to us. We're on a podcast for a second time with a guy named Scott Carson, and he fell in love with the book like you did. And he said to his gazillion listeners around the world, he said, hey, here's what I want you to do. You got to know somebody that's depressed, despondent, disconsolate, probably suicidal now. And what I want you to do, because I'm so impressed with what Mark and Crystal have done and asked the bridge from your dreams to your destiny, buy 10 and give them out. It'll change your life, and their in turn will change yours. And we went, oh my God. And it happened. Our ratings at Amazon skyrocketed. We whoa. I mean, we're just so thankful that the book is helping because we're all in a problematic time. And what we're saying very subtly is we're asking you to take your adversity, turn it into advantage. Take your adversity and say, hey, wait a second. In this pile somewhere, there's a pony in here. You know that story, right? There's an opportunity in here. And what we got to do is, first of all, like exactly what you're doing. And I love that you smile and laugh at my silliness because we all got to laugh because it's a problem. You're either going to cry and break your own heart in the world, or you're going to laugh and say, hey, wait a second. I am stronger than this. I am better than this. There are opportunities out there. And what we're seeing now is that there's more opportunities than ever, but you've got to get rid of your blinders, which is why we say there's 7 roadblocks to asking, and we've got to cover them a little bit more in a little bit more depth because we've done naivete and we've done unworthiness, just the tip of the iceberg.
Yep. And then doubt, excuses. Tell me about those.
Doubt and excuses. Doubt is just that gray buzz in your head that just, you just are constantly doubting yourself that if you ask something or, ask somebody that it's just not going to go well and it's just not going to amount to anything. So it's just this really subtle doubt. You just don't feel confident enough that it's ever going to turn out well. And there's a great story about how that can even start in our childhood, where we just weren't, our asking journey, our asking wasn't reinforced by maybe our own parents because they struggled with their own things. We really believe that everybody does the best they can from their own state of consciousness. And I talk about that in the book. I'm a transformational life coach. board certified hypnotherapist. And, it's important to remember that, because there's usually very little good that comes from like beating our parents up or people who let us down. They probably did the best they could from their own state of consciousness, which may have been troubled in many ways. So, that's why it's really important for us to take responsibility and to recognize whatever our roadblocks are. Because once we, recognize what they are, that awareness is like a big opening, it's a gate that opens for you, and then you can step through it, because now you know what's holding you back.
100%.
So, doubt. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I love your story about Everett grandson.
Yeah.
Oh, Everett is. We just took the grandkids up to Flagstaff, like we were telling you before we began. And when he got for Christmas, he got one of those gizmo watches where he could only call his parents and us, the grandparents. And so we're in Hawaii on vacation back when you could still do stuff like that. And all of a sudden, the call comes through on my cell phone, and it's Everett, and I go, oh, okay, Eb, we'll take it. And I said, what is it? He says, Grampy, you know those books you write? I said, yes, sir. He said, are you still chicken soup books? Those are yours, right? I said, yes, sir. He said, I love them. He said, are you still writing books with Mimi? And I said, yeah. That's the name she goes by. And I said, yeah. He says, well, can I write with you and Mimi? And I look at her and I go,
so serious, so earnest. It's so sweet. Just
so beautiful.
Write those books with you.
Yeah.
I mean, the kid's a prodigy, I got to say. And yes, he's our grandkid. And I don't know if you got any kids or grandkids, but, you see a lot in him. But this kid, we got 6 grandkids, and we are guaranteeing you this kid's going somewhere superb. He is. That's so
awesome.
But obviously, we said, yeah. And so he's in his first book at 6 years old.
That's fantastic. Well, what that story, illuminates for me at first is that you guys gave him the safe space, and he had the courage that he knew he could ask. And a reminder that some of our listeners probably had families where they were told to stop asking questions, to be quiet. You don't speak unless, you're spoken to, all those things. And that's where
difficult, and not just at home, but, that can happen at home. It can happen to parents, grandparents. And then you go to school, sometimes those teachers are so instrumental. You're just shut down by these teachers who are tired of teaching or whatever. And so at really critical ages, you get shut down, and then, then you go on with life, jobs, you get into some work situations where they just really don't want any feedback, don't want any questions, just do what you're told. And so all of this, the rejection of life over and over again just starts to crush that natural, first of all, the curiosity that we have as children, like we want to know everything about everything, and the desire to have more that we were born with. I mean, children want more, not because they're bad human beings. It's because it's natural for human beings to want more. We all should want more, because we're all evolving. That's what we're here for.
It's the way we're wired.
Right? So we just need to awaken that and, recognize the roadblocks and get moving on our asking journey.
I love it. Thank you. Yeah. And then excuses, too stubborn or proud to reach out and ask someone, to be vulnerable. Another roadblock, fear, that's obviously huge. In a strange way, we're afraid of losing something by asking. So tell me about that.
All of us have fear of the uncertainty of the future, and more now maybe than ever before. And one of the guys that we interviewed, what happened is we did everything we knew about asking. Then we did the total research, just like you'd expect a good author to do. And then we said, wait a second, we know 26 masters of asking. So we interviewed all of them, because everybody has fear. It's, the cliche is false evidence appearing as real if you acronym it. Yeah. But one of the guys we interviewed was Jim Stovall. And Stovall at 19 is going to go be an NFL player, and he's big, he's strong, he's fast. He gets recruited. The doctor says, oh, this is the hardest thing I've ever said to a kid. 6 months from now, Jimmy, I'm sorry to tell you this, you're going absolutely blind. Well, it wrecked his life, but he's now incarcerated, like some people are on this podcast with us, a 9x12 room, and he's got a radio, a telephone, and a television, and he's complaining, which you could imagine. And his parents say, go down to the blind meeting. He sits next to a woman that is a blind stenographer, and he hears an echo chamber of negativity, which is, as a quick aside too, everyone needs to shut off all the negativity nowadays. 15 minutes a day of TV is the most you can do. But suddenly he says, I used to love to watch thrillers and see somebody throw a right hook. Somebody ought to narrate that. Now, this is a pivotal answer. She said, wait. We're somebody. Let's ask ourselves how we can do it. Ask what we can do to fix it. And they decided to create narrative TV. Now, long story short, 14 million people a month listen at $10 each. So it became a big business for Kathy and Jim. But Jim, we interviewed this guy's pure wisdom, and we did his story. And the last thing he said is, if I live 100 years, I can't thank you enough, because he did a book called The Ultimate Gift. It's a phenomenal book, and I wrote the forward and the back thing, and I said, this is so cleanly written and clearly has got to be a movie, and it made $100 million as a movie. And he says, well, that's your fault. I said, no, you were a great writer, and I just could see what you couldn't see, obviously. He says, if I live 100 years, I got to thank you every day, because now I write books that I can't read, and I write movies that I can't see.
Who would have thought?
No matter what your position is, you got to do exactly what Kathy and Jim did. Ask yourself, how are you going to pivot, and what is it that you're going to go fix and prosper greatly from? Because it's available to all of us. All of us have what the old guy said, acres of diamonds. We've got this 4 times as much talent, Crystal says, as any of us use.
Right. And talk about being terrified. I mean, you go blind and everything you never known is gone. So that fear thing is big. And a lot of people are just afraid to ask anyone for anything because of the fear of just losing, like that rejection represents like a loss of love or acceptance.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for people to deal with. But, when we start to recognize that roadblock within ourselves, we realize it's not really about us. We personalize things. We personalize everything, right? And usually, even if we do get rejected, it's not about us at all. It's about the person's frame of mind at the time. Maybe they just can't help. Maybe they're just dealing with some stuff. But we need to remember not to personalize these things, not to make it about us, but, take charge of our own journey and keep asking. Because I'll tell you what, if he hadn't been such a bold asker, there wouldn't have been one Chicken Soup book read. And 500 million books later, that's 500 million lives plus positively changed by these stories, right?
Yeah.
So, they got turned down 144 times by different publishers. Most people would give up on the 142nd time.
And our agent even fired us to his dismay.
Right. He gave up on them. He's like, you guys, I tried everything. I got it. I'm going to release you. I don't think this book's ever going to go. They had to finally just get a publisher themselves with no agent. Think of all the people that are kicking themselves to this day because they said no.
Yeah.
So believe in your dream and keep asking.
So many great stories. So, and you talked about there's that fear of, we make it about us, somebody's going to reject us. I don't know how to ask. I don't know if I should ask. Personal story, just even yesterday, somebody very, very close to me, kind of in my inner circle, I'll say kind of in my family circle, asked me for help, kind of out of the blue, in a way, I'm being intentionally vague here for confidential reasons. But I shared with that person, what a blessing that request was, that he gave me the gift of love and respect by asking me. And we forget what a gift it is. And you point out in the book, we're not only wired to help, we love to help others.
It's so true. That's what human beings are here as a resource to one another. And yeah, we say in the book, become a granter of wishes, because what it does for you inside when you can help another human being is priceless. I mean, you can't even put a value on it because you made a difference for that person. And I think the more we help, the better we feel about ourselves. And honestly, Mark and I truly believe in the law of attraction. And when we put that good out there, it is just, and you don't do it for this reason, but it's the energy you're putting out there is going to magnetize right back to you.
Yeah.
So the more we can do for each other and help one another, help someone in need. Gosh, more than ever, we need to help each other, right?
Yeah. We're all looking for that opportunity. Another reason to ask. And so then the last, couple of roadblocks, pattern paralysis. I guess that habit, we are creatures of habits. As hypnotherapists like you, I know, that's what runs our lives.
Right. You're doing things that are just so counterproductive or disruptive to your life. And we all know those people. You kind of look at them and go, wow, they just keep doing the same thing over and over again, never breaking out of the pattern, never asking if it's working, right? And I think for all of us, we all do a little bit of that to some degree. We all have our own little mini patterns, right, that we should question so that we can start to break out of them. Because if we don't question them, we can get on a hamster wheel that takes us nowhere for a very long, miserable time. And so, asking is what gets us off that hamster wheel. It breaks the pattern. Start questioning what's working, what's not working. Why is it not working? What would work better? What are you missing? What are you not seeing in the situation? There's
And I
just
love,
so much to
yeah,
explore.
it is. There is so much. And I love that what you brought up earlier is even if you don't know how to ask, what to ask others, what should I be asking? What are you seeing or not? What am I not seeing? What should I be asking? Or, yeah.
Well, a la your experience with your relative, today I'm on with the world's greatest mentalist. He's got a podcast too. A guy named Jim Carroll. I said, so tell me how great it's going for you. And like, he's 67, he used to be a steel worker, so he never expected to be, interviewing really famous people, many of whom are our friends, I'm thankful to say. And he says, well, by the way, I am going on a radio show here with 10 million people. Would you like to be on that radio show? And this is what Crystal was talking about, the circle that we call it the value circle. If you help somebody else is going to help you. And because I've trained sales my whole life for 44 years, heavily in life insurance and real estate, and we bought a lot of real estate too. So we certainly understand both flipping of real estate and mind flipping, because you got to flip both to figure out how to buy real estate, especially today, and make sure you do it in the right market. All of which I'm not going to talk about, except to say that it's amazing that when you got that circle going, one of the guys we love to quote is Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he says his line in Compensation, the first line, which is so esoteric, but it's bears repeating here, you got to ask yourself, what does that mean? Every act is its own reward. So if you help somebody, it puts a karmic debt, so to speak, in the universe that somebody's got to help you. Well, we go out of our way to help everybody we talk to on everything if we can. Now, there's some people that you simply can't help because they don't need it, they don't really want to help. They don't want to stop drinking. They don't want to stop not working or whatever it is.
Right.
Thank God, we love what we do, and we love, talking to people that are happy like you, and helping people read books that are going to change their life, because we think our books are unique, transformational, and inevitable that everyone needs to get one in their hand. We think we got lightning in a bottle for a second time, like Chicken Soup for the Soul was.
I cannot disagree with you, and your passion and love for what you do is evident. I love it.
Thank you.
So I do want to get a few more questions in before we part ways. So that the last roadblock, disconnection, where we become numb to our own inner truth, where we kind of, you saying like, don't listen to ourselves kind of?
Right. That to me is one of the saddest ones of all, because it honestly is almost like we've given up.
Yeah.
We've lost hope. We've given up on the dreams in our own hearts. And that is so sad. It's sort of that state of apathy where, you lose hope. And so we're asking everybody to come back to the journey. The bridge is waiting for you, but you need to rekindle your curiosity. It's still there. You were born with it, and we want you to get it back. And when you start asking those questions, asking what else is out there for you, you're going to find it. You are going to find it, and you're going to follow that journey, question by question, answer by answer, and that path and that bridge is going to open up for you again. So yeah, that one to me, like, everyone needs to be alive. You're here for a reason. Don't doubt it for 1 second. I know sometimes it seems to all of us like, what's this about? What's it worth? Just your presence every day in this life is what matters, that you're alive, that you can wake up, that you can smile, that you can think, that you can, you might say one word to someone that makes all the difference in the world to them. So
100%.
never doubt the importance of your own journey here.
So, we all know, we all have our down days, and how easy it is to forget the miracle of ourselves that, and when we're struggling, it's hard to see it and remember it, but it's so true. The gift of a breath, isn't by accident. You're here for a reason.
No, exactly. Yes. Just, if you start by just saying, I'm here to observe all the beauty of this life, start with that. You are here for a reason. It's a journey. And there are going to be hills and valleys, but just keep going and keep observing and keep looking for all the good in all of it.
Yeah. So a wonderful step for any of our listeners. And, as you're saying that, Crystal, I'm going back to when I started the podcast 2.5 years ago. It was really kind of with a vision that there are people that are perhaps stuck, whether they're professional or with the hope that somebody would stumble upon the Mind Flipping podcast and recognize there's a way out of this. There are people processes, books, that can help me out of this. So it's so powerful. Thank you,
That's
you guys.
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful to hear, Rick. And I'm sure you've helped more people than you'll ever know. And that's what we're here for. So
Yeah.
it's super cool.
Even back when I went bankrupt, luckily I'd sold my way through college and got a tape by the Dean of Speakers, Cavett Robert. And it was, "Are you the cause or are you the effect?" And I thought, holy cow, I listened to this 287 times. And if I really created this bankruptcy, then I non-create it. And thank God. Otherwise, I would have committed suicide because I thought I was at the end of my rope. And there are people out there right now, and I'm not, I understand what it is to be so low. You got to reach up to touch bottom, because that's where I was. And it doesn't matter that I had a good education. I was actually healthy, and I had no reason to be unhappy other than I lost my wealth. I thought I did anyhow. And I didn't understand that I am the creator, and you and I are here, like Crystal was saying, for two reasons: to create and contribute. So the question you got to ask yourself in our book, I think, goes more penetratingly in this. I wish I'd had it when I was upside down, because what am I here to create, and what am I here to contribute? And from our point of view, we're here to create a new imagination that's inevitable, so people wake up to their own divine greatness and manifest it to the service and omni-beneficial nature of everybody out there, to do what you call mind flipping, to flip from the negative to the positive, from the unhopeful to the hopeful, from the to lack to unlimited. And for the first time, all of us can do that. And thank God for the technology we were talking about before we started the show, Zoom. Whatever number I give you now is wrong, but I think it was 671 million people signed up for Zoom last month.
Is that right?
3 years ago, it didn't exist, and now this guy's a billionaire, and good for him. What I'm saying is, each of us has talent, ability. And one of the guys that we have in the book, two guys that we know were Horatio Alger Award winners, that couldn't make it through school because they had a talent that school can't recognize. And there are a lot of people out there. So I choose to tell this story about, Quincy Jones. He found Michael Jackson, right? And then the guy we're closer to is David Foster. Well, here's a guy who couldn't make it through 13 years. At 13, he said, "School's over. I'm going to go be a musician." And orchestrates a little woman you've heard a little bit about called Barbara Streisand, and
Right.
Another Quincy,
Whitney
Houston, and on with Celine Dion and everybody. The point is that there's nobody in school that could say you could orchestrate that, or you could orchestrate a business or an industry or an enterprise, or Steve Jobs could do a gigantic business called Apple Computer, which today is going to burst through 2 trillion. They're saying, I don't know if that's true, seeing as a market's issue. But the point is, every one of them ask themselves, hey, wait a second, whatever I'm doing in school or wherever wasn't working, what could I do to reinvent myself? And that's where we are today, in the first time in history for a lot of people hanging on by their fingernails, listening to you and us.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that and reminding our listeners and myself, all of us, that, despite any past challenges, despite perhaps what teachers or schools or organizations or even they may feel society in general has said, you can't, you won't, you shouldn't, to even if you can't hear and listen to that little voice inside of you that's encouraging you that you absolutely have a gift within you, listen to Crystal and Mark and get asked. Yeah.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, my pleasure. Any last things? I want to respect your time and our listeners' time. So as we wrap things up, we've talked a little bit about the book again. How can they get that, and how can they get hold of you?
So the book is at Amazon.com, of course, the prevailing store, especially with the shutdown. And if you get the book and would like to be part of the book club, get the book and then go to askthebookclub.com. Join the book club, and we'll send you an invitation to that. And then if you want to connect with either Mark or I, my website is crystalvisionlife.com. There's a free audio I give away there that's a really good tool right now for people who are struggling with what I call messy thinking, because we all do messy thinking, right? Yeah. And so it's called Purge Messy Thinking. So go to crystalvisionlife.com. That's my gift to you. Mark also has a gift on his website, markvictorhansen.com. It's a book, a free ebook called How to Be Up in Down Times. So that's a gift. And then also reach out to us on social media. We love connecting to people. I'm at Crystal Dwyer Hansen. I know it's a tongue twister. It's a long story. And then Mark Victor Hansen, of course, but we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of the above, LinkedIn, So we'd love to hear from you. And I think I would just like to say, just remember that there's no mechanism that has the ability to reveal what is hidden, like asking. So please, start your asking journey, and we're cheering you on.
Become a master asker. I love that phrase. Yeah. So crystalvisionlife.com or markvictorhansen.com. There will be some other links. We'll put all that in the show notes at mindflipping.com. Episode number 120, a milestone.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank both of you guys so much. I want you to know, not only do I appreciate everything you've done, not only do I appreciate you guys being here, but I love you both and I appreciate you.
Oh, we love you too, Rick.
Thanks,
Thank
Rick.
you.
Thanks so much.